What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Robby Lefere, and today I just wanted to do a quick video about shallow water smallmouth bed fishing. I'm not going to go into on this video deep water bed fishing for smallmouth using a flogger or anything like that. That'll be a whole separate video that you guys will have to stay tuned for, but for the sake of time for this video, we're going to talk strictly about shallow water smallmouth bed fishing. It's all coming up. Thanks for watching. Talk about two things that you're going to need every single time you go out fishing, let alone bed fishing. First off is a good pair of sunglasses. Lens color really makes a difference when you're bed fishing, and every lake's a little bit different. What the bottom looks like, what the water clarity is, so having a couple pair of sunglasses really helps. Two colors that really work for me bed fishing, these are Oakley sunglasses. They're both prism lenses. I really like Oakley's prism lens. This color has a more blue shade to it with an amber back. I really like that color bed fishing. It really brings out the light of the bed and just kind of brightens up the bottom. And then second is Oakley's dark gray. I noticed the dark gray for me works really good in if the water has a little bit of stain to it and the beds are a little bit darker, a little bit harder to see. I really like this more amber gray lens for me personally. And then second is just a baseball cap or a nice hat with a good bill on it that has a little bit longer bill, something that really blocks out the sun. You try to get a bill that blocks off the sun more on the sides and fits your sunglasses nice. You don't really want a big gap in between the bill and the top of your sunglasses, and a lot of times you can angle your hat more tilted down bed fishing. That really helps block out the sun, and basically you're just trying to keep the sun from creeping in behind your sunglasses, and putting a hood up too really helps. So now I want to talk about the ideal conditions for if you're looking for smallmouth on beds, especially up shallow, is sunny, bluebird skies with no wind. That will make your life a lot easier if you can get out there on a day with those conditions. Unfortunately, when fishing, we don't always have the best conditions. So on days where it is cloudy or a little bit windy and harder to see the beds, I want to talk about a few baits that I use to cover water and still fish, but mainly I'm targeting fish on beds, but I'm just trying to get them to react and show themselves, so I know where they're at on beds, but not without necessarily seeing the bed or the fish themselves. So two baits I use when the conditions aren't necessarily ideal. If it's a little bit overcast or windy and those beds are a little bit harder to see, I'll get up on those flats and I will throw a really light swim bait, 1/4 ounce and lighter, even a line through swim bait with just a treble hook, something really light that'll keep it high in the water column, right under the surface. That way I'll see the fish react to it, I'll see them swirl on it. And with these two baits, I'm not necessarily trying to catch the fish or hook the fish, more just trying to have them show themselves and reveal themselves, so I can go back with a drop shot or a Ned rig, something with a little bit better hookup ratio, and catch them off their bed. Colors with this swim bait, you'll notice they're really bright white, and I'll dye the tail and belly chartreuse. I'll even throw a bright pink swim bait, something just that I can see the bait easy and I can see a fish behind it or react to it. It just makes my job easier with a brighter color bait. The second bait I'll use, and probably my favorite bait to use, just covering water, looking for smallmouth on beds, is a super fluke. Just 5-inch super fluke is a great way to cover water, get the fish to react to them. Like I said, not necessarily always trying to catch the fish, but just have them show themselves. Colors I use for the fluke, white, pink, chartreuse, are really my main three. Again, all bright colors that I can see. Not necessarily natural to the fish, but they're smallmouth. They're aggressive. They'll react to it, or at least come up and look at it, show themselves, so I can go back and catch them with another bait. Now I'll get into my three favorite baits that I like to use to actually catch the fish on the bed. If I show up and the fish is locked down on the bed, I will start with these three baits 100% of the time. First off is a drop shot. The reason why I like the drop shot the best is because it has by far the best hookup ratio. And if I can get a smallmouth to bite a drop shot, I know 99 times out of 100 I'm going to get them in the boat, and that's, to me, that's what you want when you're bed fishing. If you notice, both of these baits are really small in size and length. And the reason why is, I've got one tied up right here. The reason why is I've just got a little nose hook on it. And I like the nose hook, again, because it has a great hookup ratio. But I throw that small bait on there, so a lot of times these smallmouth will just grab the back or just the tail of the bait and not always get the hook. And just a smaller bait, if you have a long 5-inch bait on here, that's just more plastic that they've got to get, more things that they have to inhale before they get to the hook. So again, a smaller bait on a drop shot really helps. I throw two colors. If you notice, one's a bright chartreuse and one's just a natural green pumpkin, purple flake, and green pumpkin brown, just something natural. I will always when I'm smallmouth bed fishing, and this is different from when I'm largemouth bed fishing, when I'm smallmouth bed fishing, I will always start out with the brighter color. And the reason why is, a lot of times I will see the bed, but I won't actually know if there's a fish on it. In the brighter color baits, what that does is I can see this on the bed from a far distance away. And if there is a fish on that bed and I can't necessarily see him, a lot of times I'll see him react to this or swim in front of it or swim behind it. And it just, a brighter color bait helps you pick out small subtleties in the bed or a fish in the bed, just because you can see it better. And like I said, a lot of times the fish will actually swim in front of this bait, so the bait will go out of sight, or the fish, if he inhales it or has it in his mouth, you'll see him swimming off with it. Again, it's just easier for me to see these brighter color baits in the bed. Now, a lot of times, especially on our pressured bodies of water, they won't always bite the bright, loud colored baits. So if I know there is a fish in the bed, I will switch to a green pumpkin or a more natural colored bait, and hopefully that helps getting that fish to bite. It doesn't always work, but it is something to try before you leave the bed or switch baits. Second bait I like to throw is a Ned rig. Ned rig's a great presentation. It's different than the drop shot, and I've noticed that a lot of times some of the fish like to react to a bait that's off the bed, and some of the fish will only react to a bait that's actually sitting on the bottom in their bed. My top bait is a Ned rig, again, because it's just a smaller profile, it's got a smaller hook, a good hookup ratio. And one thing I really like throwing a Ned rig for is it's got a straight fall, which it doesn't have a big spiral fall. It typically falls straighter down, which compared to a tube, one big mistake I see guys fishing on beds, and this is again just my personal preference, is guys will use tubes when they're smallmouth fishing on beds. I try to stay away from that, again, because a tube has on the fall, it has a real spiral action to it, and it doesn't always fall straight. And it's hard for me to get that bait on the bed right where I want it, whether it's the left side of the bed, the right side, right in the middle, wherever that fish seems to be reacting to the bait the most. It's hard for me to get that bait on that specific spot with a tube, again, because it has a real erratic action of a spiral action on the fall, and it doesn't always fall straight. That's why I like the Ned rig over a tube. But one thing I will say with my Ned rigs that I do different is I don't always throw the, you know, your Z-Man, your TRD style worm that everyone else throws or is a more popular bait. I do a lot of times when I'm bed fishing throw a handful of Ned rig baits, and I will switch. Every fish is different. Every fish reacts to something different. They don't always react to the same thing. I have, you know, 5 or 6 different Ned rig baits that I throw, whether it's little craws or, you know, little Z-Man, you know, little flukes, or, you know, Strike King Z2s. Just kind of, in a lot of these stuff, or a lot of these baits I pour myself, you know, just kind of just different baits that every person doesn't necessarily have. And I think that'll give you an advantage just because the fish don't always see those baits. It's something different. They just, again, a lot of our lakes are pressured and those fish see the same baits over and over again. And last but not least is a menace. Again, I throw white, or I throw 2 colors, white and a natural color. Now, one thing I do different when I do throw this menace is I like putting it on a Tokyo rig compared to a standard Texas rig. And the reason why is, again, I don't think there's very many people throwing Tokyo rigs on a bed, so it gives the bait a little bit different presentation with the weights being on the bottom and the bait being above them. So it keeps that bait off the bed a little bit. And with a Tokyo rig, it's got that swivel on there, so it has, you know, a more natural, more free action to it. And another huge advantage to me why I like throwing a Tokyo rig over a standard Texas rig on a bed is your hookup ratio is 100 times better. A standard Texas rig doesn't have a bad hookup ratio, but a Tokyo rig is, you know, almost 100%. And the reason why is those weights aren't in front of the hook. So when that fish gets it, you don't have to worry about busting that fish's mouth open with the weights. The weights are, again, below the hook, and they're more just getting straight hook, which is what you want. And I always try to pick baits when I'm bed fishing that have good hookup ratios. It's hard enough to get these fish to bite sometimes, but when they do, you want to get them in the boat. And then lastly, one advantage to a Tokyo rig other than a Texas rig to me is, if you notice on this Tokyo rig, I have 2 separate weights on here. And the reason why I do that is these weights both add up to a 1/2 ounce. But the reason why I do that is when I'm sitting there shaking that bait in the middle of its bed trying to get that fish to react, these weights come apart and clack together, so that makes a little bit of noise. And I think that is just one little thing that's different that the fish don't always hear, that can, you know, make those fish mad on their bed, you know, and almost make them react to something that they just haven't seen or don't hear all that much. So yeah, these weights both separate, and you get that clack when you're sitting there just shaking it. And I think that to me is a huge advantage that a lot of guys don't necessarily do. Those fish don't see all that. We appreciate you guys watching. If you have any likes, or if you have any comments, concerns, or things you'd like to see us do different, don't be afraid to put them in the comment section below. And if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys watching, and thanks again.